Okay. Okay. All right, I'm just going to take a sip and then I'll start a little introduction and we'll get it going. Okay, welcome. This is David Schaff with Yellow Letters Complete, and I wanted to take an opportunity to talk to one of our clients today who's had just tremendous success with Yellow Letters, with marketing, and has built himself quite the real estate business. I'd like to introduce Stephen Nguyen, and we wanted to go over his business, how he uses Yellow Letters Complete for marketing, and what type of growth and what his expectations are for the future. So Stephen, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. No, thank you, Dave, for having me on. It's been an honor and privilege to work with yourself and your team at Yellow Letters Complete. You're very kind in the introduction, but to kind of summarize at a high level, I scaled from about 0 to 90 units in 5 years. And honestly, for the first 4 years, I only had about 4 to 5 single family homes. But what really added lightning to a bottle for me and helped with my exponential growth was when I started doing off-market marketing campaign using Yellow Letters Complete mailing service. And that's how I was able to literally get around, at least 80, 85 units in the past year by using this direct mailing campaign. So for some kind of background, I used the truly handwritten letter. And I started sending 300 letters a month during a 6-month span. So in the middle of 2021, actually right when the pandemic started, that was the hottest real estate market, right? Interest rates were, below 3%. It was just very competitive. If you went on Redfin, Zillow, LoopNet, or even worked with a broker, those deals were overpriced. And by the time, you made an offer, we had like 10, 20 other investors just bidding against each other. So it was always just like, here's my offer. And the broker would be like best and final. This man raised my offer, another best and final, another offer, best and final. And by the time it got to the end, it was just way overpriced that, I didn't want to pay that price. And, I'm competing with, big syndicators, right? I was just starting off. I didn't have a track record. I didn't really have any credibility. So, no one really took me seriously.
So you run your business on your own, no other business partners, anything like that. How do you manage 90 units of real estate on your own?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As you allude to, I work full time still. So I work as a pharmacist full time. So that's I'm a pharmacy director. It's a little busier than, your typical pharmacist. And on top of that, I scaled, to 90 units. So what really helped me do that was just leverage, right? So I leverage a property manager, and my property manager will then either serve as my general contractor or help me work with a general contractor to renovate units. So I actually am renovating about 20 units right now in my 90 unit portfolio, and they all just maybe about the next month or two should finish up. And at that point, I'm going to rent them all out and significantly increase my income through the rental properties. So I'm anticipating around $10,000 a month just between my 2 apartment complexes after I finished renovations. So that really helped me, leverage my time, but also in terms of the marketing, I do everything, myself besides the lettering. So I outsourced that to you guys because I actually tried preparing 300 letters myself one time and it took me 8 hours. It literally took me 8 hours.
It's a significant amount of time and effort when you have probably much better things to do with a full-time job and 90 units to manage.
Exactly. And, I kind of look at dollar per hour task, right? Like, is my time best spent, preparing these letters, or is it best spent, managing my renovation, trying to get more deals? And, when you guys send the letters out for me, it's very passive, right? I literally just give you my data on Excel. I give you a letter template that I use. I mean, you guys have letter templates that, investors can use as well. And then literally, I just get a quote, shoot you guys an email, and you send me a proof, which I just review and e-sign. If that looks good, then basically you tell me, okay, it's gonna send on this day. Usually I try to target. I think you guys send out Monday or Wednesday.
Yeah,
Or the
Monday,
2 days.
Wednesday, Friday are our typical
Yeah,
mailing days. And are you using first class postage on yours, regular first class stamps?
yeah, just regular live stamps.
Okay.
So to kind of deep dive into how I do my letters, I use the A2 sized envelopes. So
Mhm.
they're kind of note sized. So why I like that is it feels like a friend or family sent you like a thank you card. So,
Yeah,
if you have the typical 8.5 by 11 letter, it kind of seems like spam, right? Like you're kind
yeah,
of used to
yeah,
just grabbing it. And I do it personally. I open my mailbox, half of it goes right into the trash can,
yeah.
right? Like I have a trash can
Even
right next to my mailbox.
even I have to admit that too. I mean, it's really easy to identify spam, and that's why we like to send those small invitation size envelopes. I'll tell you, there's not a lot of companies that like to use those because they're actually
Yeah.
kind of difficult to work with, especially at scale. But we do it because it differentiates you. So that's why we like that, and I'm glad to hear that's helping work for you as well. Would you mind telling us a little bit about how you generate a list, what type of parameters and criteria you look for, how you identify a market? We can help you develop a really excellent and really high quality, authentic mailing campaign.
Mhm.
Um, but you're the one who has to decide who you really want to reach out to. Can you tell me about that process?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually use PropStream for my data, and it kind of varies per market, but I target Oklahoma, specifically Oklahoma City. And why I kind of like Oklahoma City is because it's not the most attractive market, is what I call it. It's very steady Eddie. When the market goes up, it's stable. When the market goes down, like
Mhm.
what we're kind of expecting, it's kind of stable. So, and it's just very affordable. Rents are $600 for a 1 bedroom, $70 for a 2 bedroom.
Yeah.
So you can be a blue collar worker and still afford this market. So that's what really drew me towards Oklahoma. But specifically with PropStream, the way I set my parameters is I want to target, apartment complexes, typically between 5 to maybe 50 units is kind of the sweet spot.
Mhm.
And why I like that range is number one, I'm not competing with the syndicators. They typically want 100 plus. And then number two is I want to target the mom and pop operators. And what's really nice about the mom and pop operators is, number one, they self-manage the property themselves, right? So they're too cheap to pay for a property manager. They sometimes do their own maintenance. And the one I bought it from, he actually does his own pest control, and he's a lawyer, like full time. So like he's doing everything. He has it do it yourself mentality, but eventually, they want to retire. So he's been doing this for 20, 30 years, and now he wants to retire and basically cash in on his nest egg. So that's what's really nice about. So I structure my data cater towards mom pop owners, and what's nice about Yellow Letters Complete is these owners appreciate letters still, right? Like these are the type of people who don't like you calling them, who don't like you texting them or emailing them. They actually appreciate, the authenticity and all that with a letter, right? Because it's kind of a lost art, unfortunately. We're so bombarded with text messages and spam calls, and even my phone when I get called because I get called by people, investors trying to want to buy my properties,
Yeah.
and when I pick up my phone, it says spam on it automatically. Or if they send me a text message, it'll be in the spam section, so I don't even see it half the time. And the other half the time, I'm just frustrated getting it because I don't want to get these spam calls. Versus with the letters, I literally just send the letters, or you guys send the letters on, like, I typically aim for like a Monday so that they
Mhm.
get it by Friday. That's end of the
Yeah.
day. People are winding down from that busy week, and they open the letter or they receive it, and they just, I have the front, you guys handwrite it for me. So it's the truly handwritten. So the name, the address is handwritten. I have a live stamp on the front. When you flip it over, you'll have my information on it.
Mhm.
So my self-adhesive name and address. And then at that point, you
And then
can
you
open.
also have a live signature and a little
Yeah,
handwritten note on your letter too. Those
yeah,
are
yeah,
nice little touches that really kind of authenticate that, hey, there was a human that actually took the time to write this to me. Can you tell me about what it's like getting a call? What sort of calls do you experience? And what's that initial conversation like when when you meet someone that's interested in selling one of these properties?
Yeah, yeah. No, actually, you touched on it a little bit, but let me talk a little bit more about the handwritten part in the letter. So on top of the handwriting on the envelope, we actually write something on the letter where we hand sign my name. So like I said, it feels personalized.
Mhm.
So I'm a pharmacist, so I use my doctor title, and then you guys sign the doctor title for me. But on top of that, I handwrite a call to action. So if the owner's name is Dave, I'd say, "Hey Dave, please call me at this number." And it just feels like I took the time to put in that effort, and they feel kind of more obligated to want to call me, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm sending out, 300 letters, typically 3% response rate, which is pretty good, right? So I mean, that's about 10 people calling me back.
Mhm.
And then at that point, maybe out of that 10, maybe two might be real serious. Maybe the other eight might be like, hey, you're from California, overpaid for my property, right? Or like, hey, I'll sell it to you if you give me way over asking price. So unfortunately, that is the nature of the business. But usually when people call me, so like I said, letters come up Monday, usually by Friday or the Monday of next week, they might either call me, email me, or text me. Majority do call, especially if they're, more traditional, more old fashioned. But typically, for the first call that I do, I kind of have this 10 question sheet that I go through. But the sense is like my first question is always, hey, tell me about the property. And the whole point of that is to kind of break the ice, right?
Yeah.
I'm essentially a complete stranger that lives in California that sent a letter to Oklahoma, right?
Mhm.
So, and then they're skeptical, and I would be too, and you would be too, right? We all would be skeptical. So, I know of real estate investors and myself included is, be asking about, hey, how long have you owned the property? We love talking about our real estate as if it's our kids. So it
Sure.
just kind of gets them talking, breaks the ice, but also as the investor, I get to learn key nuggets about the property, right? So all I'm doing is I ask that question and you just sit back and listen. Like it's so simple. Like they'll talk for at least 5, 10 minutes. And then from there, it's just a very organic conversation, right? So they usually share, hey, Stephen, I've owned this for 20, 30 years. So right out the gate, it tells me this might be owned free and clear, right? So I can then
Yep.
potentially pitch creative financing, so seller financing, so they can become the bank for me if it's owned free and clear, or if they have a loan on it, then I can do subject to or master lease agreement. So those are the two strategies that I use. And what's beautiful about that is you can negotiate your down payment, your interest rate, and your terms. Like you can literally pick any terms you want. I've literally negotiated, I think, 10% down, 5% at the close of escrow, and 5% at year one. But unfortunately, the property was in a high crime area, so I didn't want to move
Oh,
forward with it. But then, like just things like that are as possible, right?
yeah.
Like it's literally possible. And if you do creative financing, you don't involve a bank, you close a lot faster, and it's just a lot simpler, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to do that. And like I said, everything's negotiable. Like interest rates are negotiable, terms, down payment, anything. And if you can get as creative as you want. It's just a matter of, do they trust you and do they want to work with you? And that's what the questions are.
So how do you build credibility with someone like that? Like you said, you're in California, reaching out to someone halfway across the country. You're negotiating a six-figure sale. How do you give them confidence that you're someone they want to work
Yeah, great question. So the first part is the letter that you guys, do for me, right? So I use the truly handwritten letter, and I do give a little blurb about myself. So, typically in the letter it will say, "Hey, I'm Steven. I've been a pharmacist for about 10 years now. I own about six investment properties, one in Oklahoma, and I'm just looking to buy one or two more in this area. I came across your apartment complex and, I'm interested in making an offer." And I kind of explain my why a lot of times to make stuff real relatable. Because at the end of the day, I just work and want to, build give myself financial freedom for myself and my future family. So, just come off
with?
as a regular Joe that's
Yeah.
just hardworking and wants to provide for the family, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone would relate to that story. So I come off very casual. I don't come off like I'm a fancy LLC capital, venture like email. Like my email is just literally a Gmail, my name at gmail.com. Just very simple. When they text me, it's my actual phone number. It's
Yeah.
not some 800 number. I try to come off very casual because I want to become very relatable and trustworthy versus if I'm a big corporation, it might seem like, hey, I'm trying to steal this property from you and rip you off. So, I just build trust by just being myself and explaining my story and not, even though I have 90 units, I try not to let it get to my head. I try to just keep my head down and be very humble. But it's just really listening. And then, for me personally, because I'm a pharmacy director, so a lot of this translate over to my real estate business side is I just want to create a win-win situation to, make it a win-win for both of us. I don't want to give them the short end of the stick. I don't want to get the short end of the stick either. And I just want to like problem solve, right? So like, hey, we have this problem here. Like you want to sell, I want to buy. Like, how can we make this a win-win that I can get my price that makes sense for me? Also, you can sell at a price and sell to somebody that you trust, know, and that you don't feel like you get the short end of the stick. Because if you feel like you got the short end of the stick, you don't want to do business with me anymore. So, like how do you do that? Each person is different, right? I always say we're buying situations, we're not buying real estate. So I'm trying to understand your specific situation so I can cater my best offer and work with you the best way I can to cater towards you so that we can get this done. And if you help them, believe me, their trust that you build with them will skyrocket so much because they're like, wow, I really appreciate this guy. Like he's really educating me about the process and selling my home. Because it might have been like 20 years since they've, bought a home or sold a home, bought a home. A lot of these people don't even have a profit and loss statement or a rent roll. So I have templates and I help them do it. Like I'm on the phone with them, just say, hey, read me unit number one, how much rent does that get? And I'll type it out. Unit number two, how much rent does that get? And they really appreciate that because I'm helping them build that. And the lenders are going to ask for it, right?
Right.
They're going to ask for this information. So I'm actually helping them do it. And ironically, I don't even talk about price yet. The first phone call, it's literally, 30 to 60 minutes. I do ask like at the end, what's a good price look like for you? Honestly, sometimes they don't say anything. They say, oh, you make me an offer, or sometimes they might give me a price, right? But I don't really say if it's like high or low. I just said, okay, yeah, let me analyze your property. Let me run it by my lender and see what they think about that price, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not already outward saying no, it's too high. I'm just saying let me talk with my lender. And sometimes I do know the price is too high, right?
Sure. Sure.
But then I don't want to be the bad guy and say no. I want the lender to say no because ultimately it's my
Yeah.
lender
Because
who's the bad guy.
then you're still on the same side. You've still got a
Yeah.
partner, and you've still got a situation that you can work with. Right. That's great.
Exactly. Like I will like just say, hey, let me run it by my lender, and I'm transparent. I just tell them, hey, I talked to my lender. They think your price is a little bit too high, and this is how they analyze the deal. And I'll show them the underwriting that the lender uses because they want to hit a certain debt service coverage ratio of 1.25. And I use their numbers, right? Their income, their expense, and then
Mhm.
the loan terms, right? Because loan interest rates are going up, right? So the debt service coverage ratio, it's hard to hit with a 8% interest rate versus a 4% interest rate a year ago. So I just showed them numbers and said, hey, look, like I want to give you your price, but my lender, who's giving the majority of the money, right? They don't like the deal. And I typically run it through 5 to 10 lenders to build that credibility. So it's not just one lender; it's 5 to 10. And sometimes if they have a lender on the property already, I'll talk to their lender to see if they would even finance it that deal,
Sure.
right? So it's someone that they know and trust and use already. So like I said, I just be transparent, and then at that point, they're just like, well, I'm really fixing on that price. At that point, I pitch creative financing, like I'll give you your price if you give me my terms. So, like I said, it's me and you, or me and the owner working against the lender who's the bad guy. So we're kind of like working together against a common enemy. So it
It's
builds that
it's easy
trust.
to get people on board with making the bank the enemy.
Yeah, like no one likes banks in general. So it's very easy to make that third party bank lender the bad guy, right?
Okay.
So um,
Well, can you go a little bit more into detail on those on those recent acquisitions you made. Tell us what sort of returns you've gotten already, what's your expectation, and what your
Yeah.
plans are with these properties.
Yeah, great question. So I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I sent out 300 letters a month for a span of 6 months. So typically you do have to be very consistent with your mailing campaign. Sometimes the first month or two, you may not get many responses, but these letters compound because a lot of these owners, they see the letter, they throw it into a dresser, a drawer, and then they leave it there for like a year or two, and all of a sudden they take it out, they're cleaning out their house one day and they see your letter and they call you. So it really takes consistency, at least 6 to 12 months, I recommend to anyone starting a direct mailing campaign. But basically, my first deal that I got, and I think it took me about, I think it was month 3 when I actually got this deal under contract, was a 26 unit apartment complex in Oklahoma City. It was a lawyer who was working his own law firm, and he was self-managing the property, doing his own maintenance, doing his own pest control. He actually had a little office. One of the units was his office on the side, and he was in his upper 60s, and he was just looking to retire because it's lawyers are busy as is. I don't know how he was able to manage a 26 unit himself, but I just called. He actually emailed me, and because he was a lawyer, he didn't want anything verbal. He wanted everything written. That's typical lawyer. And I work with him, right? I don't really care. If you want to call me, call me. If you want to text me, text me. If you want me to email you, I'll email you, right? I,
Well,
I
that
want to
builds
cater.
credibility and that builds friendship, and that's a great
Yeah,
way to get him on your side. Work with him if that's the way he wants to be worked with.
yeah.
It's an
So that's why I said
easy way to build trust.
I cater towards the customer service, right? I literally cater towards, and I get it. He's a lawyer. Like he wants everything documented and written in case something happens. He has proof, and I have proof too. So it goes both ways. And he basically just said, make me an offer. And I literally just put up the tax assessed price, public information, and the tax assessed price said $520,000. And I just said, all right, like I'm just gonna make this offer. I thought he was gonna counter me, but I literally made the offer, and like the next day he signed it.
That
Yeah,
fast.
like he signed it. Yeah, he's
Wow.
literally signed it that fast. And obviously he was able to give me the rent, the lease agreements, the rent roll, the profit and loss statement. He was able to get me that
You already
information.
had the information you need to have confidence that that
Yeah,
offer was going to work for you.
exactly. Like, it was like day one, it was, I think, grossing about $10,000 a month already. I already knew that the rents could be bumped up by, I think he was averaging 350. Like the rents could be bumped up to 500 without me doing anything. If I were to do about $8,000 worth of renovation for a couple units, I can raise it. I can double the rents from 350 to 700. So, I already knew out the gate that like, if he offered me, I offered 520, but if he countered me, honestly, at like, I think my highest price point was around 750, to be honest. And that's what I was willing to pay for the property. And that's what the lender would be willing to lend up to. But, obviously you want to start low, and I kind of expected him to counter me, but he ended up just taking it as is. And he probably just knew that I offered the tax assessed price. Because sometimes if they get offended by the offer, because some people do, a lot do. And then I just said, well, I just offered the tax assessed price. Like, what would a good price look like for you? Right. I'm not making anything up. It's literally public information. They see their tax bill every year. So
Yeah, you
they know
should be
how much.
familiar with that number already. Yeah.
Exactly. You know exactly what that number is. So I made that offer and it worked out for me. And then because I was go directly to the owner during my due diligence, I had an inspector inspect all 26 units. And I actually asked for $60,000 of seller repair credit. And, that helps lower your down payment because,
Yeah.
the roof needed to be fixed. I had some water electric panels that were recalled and they were a safety hazard. So I just basically, during my inspection, I got quotes for everything.
Hmm.
And then I just gave him the quotes, all my bids and quotes, and said, hey, like, can you give me some seller repair credits? And at first he was like, oh, this property's as is. Yeah, and they said, well, can you kind of lower a bit and I'll consider it. So, at first I asked for like 100,000. Then afterwards I just said, okay, let me talk to my property manager. So once again, I'm making my property manager the bad guy, not me. And I just said, all right, I talked to my property manager, I talked to my insurance carrier, and I think these are the items that we definitely need to fix today. And number one's the roof, because I will not get insurance or a bank to lend on me if I have an
Yeah.
old roof.
Yeah.
And number two is the electric panels were recalled, so it's a fire hazard, right? So of course, same thing, like a lender and insurance company will not give me insure the property. So I just made that very clear, and I gave them the quotes. So once again, nothing made up, right? I got quotes from a contractor. I have information from my lender. You know, they sent me an email. So like I had things written, right? So I wasn't blowing smoke there. I wasn't making anything up. It was full transparency, and he ended up agreeing to, you know, giving me that $60,000 repair credit. So that helped me, you know, fix the roof and
Yeah.
fix these issues that I had. And like I said, if I had a broker involved or two brokers involved, I never would have had this relationship. And he probably just would have said no to as is because you're more detached.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
back to the plan. Sorry. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm basically renovating. I renovated about 10 units so far, about $8,000 each. I was able to raise the rents by double. So I did hit my pro forma to 700. But you know, after I raised those rents, I think the value of the apartment complex to be about 1.3 million. So I bought it for half a million. I'm putting in about $200,000 of renovation. So I'm all in for 700,000. Actually, when I bought the property, it appraised at $750,000 day one. So I made $250,000 of equity day one. But I think after I'm done with my renovations and raising the rent, it's going to be worth around $1.3 million. So you're talking about $800,000 return on my money. And I'm going to do a cash out refi, pull out all my money, right? All my down payment, my renovation costs, tax free, and then buy another apartment complex. You know, once I resend out, start up my mailing campaign again, right? Because I know that I'm pretty confident if I start my mailing campaign within 6 to 12 months, I can get another deal, right? And
That's,
something similar to my deal that I have currently.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So that's
incredible.
my first deal. My second deal, which
You've
came,
already basically made six figures in at least equity, and in terms of valuation, it's getting pretty high. And you've put a decent amount of capital involved, your own work and all that. I get asked about, what's the return on my mailing campaign?
yeah,
Well, I mean, you've by far, probably exceeded the cost of your mailing by 100x at least. And so, that's incredible. That's an incredible return. We'd love to hear those stories.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I sent out 1,800 letters, which maybe kind of round up everything. It was around $3,000 for simplicity. For that whole mailing campaign. But between my 26 unit and my 20 unit, just day one, they appraised $300,000 above what I purchased them for. So I spent $3,000 to make $300,000, and that's just day one, right? I think no one would say no to that return, right? 100x return day one. And that's not including me doing renovations, me raising the rents. Like I said, once I'm done with my value add strategy in about, probably another 1 to 2 years, that 26 unit will be worth around 1.3 to 1.5. So that's
Wow.
3x what I bought it for. So that's $1 million more. And my 20 unit, it's probably gonna be worth double as well. I'm all in for about 450 for that one, 450,000, and it's probably gonna be worth 800, 900,000. So I mean, that's just day one equity, right? And then that's not including the equity that I force, 1 to 2 years. And that's how you scale as a real estate professional, right? People ask me like, well, how do you own 90 units without partners while working full time? It's because I buy the properties right. Right? I buy it so right that I have such a large cushion that even if like my 26 unit, I made $250,000 day one. Like, let's say I had $100,000 plumbing issue that I had to fix. Yes, it sucks, right? But even paying for that $100,000 fix, I'm still up $150,000 on the property, right? So it's already built in by buying right. And unfortunately, to buy right, you have to go direct to owner, right? And
Yeah.
build that trust. If you involve two brokers, brokers are paid 3% of the sales price. So they're incentivized to sell at the highest price. And for them, their show off is, oh, I sold this for $300,000 over asking, right? Well, if my direct mailers, it's my show off is I got this for $250,000 under market value, right? So it's like a different mentality. And the brokers get 3%, right? So you do the math. Like if I had a broker, I'd pay them 3%, right? Like would I pay the broker 3%, which could be like $30,000 versus $40,000 can get me a whole year's of my mailing campaign, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
At that point, I
Exactly.
can get a under market apartment complex and make equity day one. So like to me, it's a no-brainer to like send letters out instead of using a broker, because I've unfortunately never had a broker in 5 years that I've been investing bring me a good deal. I analyze the broker deals, and I showcase to people that just to make a point that like it's overpriced. I mean, it doesn't make sense for most people. It depends on your situation, right? For me, I want equity and cash flow day one. But if you don't need that, then you can work with a broker.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
if you want to scale, you need cash flow, right? You need cash flow day one, and you need to buy right. And imagine in like 3 years, once I cash out, refi these properties, I take all my money out, and I'm waiting to buy another property, and it just gets easier and easier the more you do it, right? So the first one was the hardest, right? And then the second one got easier, and
Yeah.
subsequently the third, fourth, fifth, sixth down the road, it's going to be way easy. Like my system is an autopilot at this point. Just have you guys send out my letters, wait a couple days to pick up my phone, and then just build the trust. And now that I have properties in Oklahoma City already, it's even easier. So hey, my apartment is 3 miles away from yours. Like,
Yep.
how much credibility is that? Like, I have a property manager there. Oh, can my property manager drive by your property and check it out? And then
Exactly.
obviously if we're under contract, then I'll fly out there and I'll meet you. And yeah, I want to see your property. So it's just easier and easier the more you do it.
What advice can you give to someone who's on the early side? Like I think you said in your story, you got up to a point where you had 4 or 5 single family properties before you started getting into commercial.
Yeah.
If you're still building up that first or second portfolio property, what advice do you have for those people out there?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually got started off in single family homes, and we're kind of talking before we are recording, but we were both living in the Bay Area at one point, and just a single family home in Silicon Valley, it's like 1.5 to 2 million, depending on where you're living, right? So at the time, I just bought a single family home. You can do 10% down because you live in it, and I just lived in the master bedroom, and I would rent out the other rooms in my the other rooms. I wasn't using them, right?
Yeah.
I'm still a single guy, so I just rented out, and they help cover my mortgage, right? So that's what I did starting off. But I quickly realized, like, wait, if I want to leave my day job, like, the California is great for appreciation,
Mhm.
but for cash flow, like, you're lucky to even break even if you were to rent out the property. So at that point, I was like, well, I need to change up my model and invest out of state and invest in apartment complexes. But as you mentioned, it's very intimidating, right? I never thought I'd own an apartment complex, to be honest. I thought only rich people own that stuff, right? And I basically just got educated, right? I basically, there's a lot of YouTube, podcasts. If you check out my YouTube, I do some education, sharing my journey, and just surround yourself with, like-minded individuals. And like you said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like I'm actually teaching some students right now with my course, and my first student, she just closed on a 35 unit apartment complex in Mississippi within, geez, like 1 month. I mean, she was lucky she
Wow.
found it on market. It was actually on
Wow.
LoopNet. But I have my another student who is using your service for Yellow Letters Complete. So all my students use Yellow Letters Complete currently. Um, and he is under contract for an 11 unit apartment complex in downtown San Antonio.
That's
So
great.
just know San Antonio, Texas is a very hot market, right? Like
Yeah.
your response rate in Texas is 1% because it's very hot, very competitive. A lot of investors are going there. And he was able to get under contract 11 unit in downtown San Antonio, very good location. And the owner owned it for 100 years. It's been in her family for 100 years.
Wow.
So what does that tell you? It tells you that it's probably owned free and clear. So there's opportunity to do seller financing. And he got for under contract for $750,000, which is $70,000 per unit. And that's very cheap. I told him out the gate, I don't even know San Antonio market, but for downtown San Antonio, that is definitely a good deal. So you want to build trust with this person, start building trust. And she is older. So he is helping her do stuff. And I said, continue doing that. So, you just need to follow a proven system, and then from there, emulate that. And then once you follow that system, you can slightly tweak it to work in a way that works best for you, right? So a lot of people that like working with me is, they work a full-time job like me, and they want to scale portfolio without any partners, which is what I've done, right? So if you want to do what I've done, copy my system, right? If you want to syndicate 0 to 1,000 units in 1 year, then don't follow me, right? Follow a syndicator who's done that, But for me personally, I just like to slowly scale. I don't like to syndicate because you lose power to the investors. And to be honest, it's more stressful for me to manage someone else's money versus my own money, right? I have full control of my money. If I lose my money, okay, I can sleep at night. But if I lost your money, Dave, and you're investing in my property, I'd definitely be sleep up at night.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm investing. But yeah, overall, just get educated, surround yourself with people in the business that are actually doing it. Like I said, I'm actually doing, I've done letters, right? I know exactly how to strategize it. I know exactly how to talk to owners, and I know exactly how to negotiate, right? That's all it is at the end of the day. And my students are following my system, and they're obtaining the same success faster than me. So I'm like, I said it took me a learning curve to do all this, and they're, like you said, within 1 to 2 months already doing what it took me about, maybe 3 to 6 months to do. So I did it pretty fast too, but it just shows how effective these letters are. And one of my students said that the owner called and said, "Wow, these are the most personalized letters I've ever seen, ever."
We
Right?
love to hear that. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we strive to do. And I love hearing that feedback from the actual person who received it.
Yeah.
Stephen, how can anyone get in touch with you? How can they learn more about your system and your program and work with you if they have any interest in that?
Yeah. So I can, we can put a link down below potentially, but you can just send me an email. So it's just DAT. So that's S as in Stephen, D as in David, A as in Apple, T as in Tom. My last name, Nguyen, at gmail.com. You can actually look me up on YouTube. You just can type Making Multifamily Money on YouTube, and you can find my YouTube channel and all social media platforms. So Instagram, TikTok. And also, if you find my social media, you can find a link to my course and my mentorship. So it's Making Multifamily Money. It's an A to Z system to basically close on your first off-market apartment complex. And I do show exactly how to set up your mailing campaign, how to structure your letters, and even have a referral link to yourself, because you basically know how my letters are structured. So you can help anybody that is in my course, and you have been already, on how exactly to structure the letters there. So it's really a one-stop shop to help you get your first apartment complex. And like I said, it's very streamlined in terms of the process. And what I really focus on the students is building that trust, and coaching them to build trust with owners, because that's the hard part. That is definitely the hard part, and that's how you close the deals. And the letters that you guys send out sets up the foundation for that, to build up.
Well, Stephen, thank you very much for all your time, and thank you for joining us today. You've got an incredible story with your success. We love to hear it, and I'm just happy we could be a small part of that. You've done very well for yourself. So thank you very much for your time. We'll have all the relevant links to get in touch with you and see your YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. And like I said, thanks to Yellers Complete, it helped me scale significantly, and get these deals. Like, it would have not been possible, without the letters that you guys created. So I really appreciate it myself, and that's why my students are getting the same success with with Yellers Complete.
Awesome. And we love to see that knowledge and that success passed down to another generation of investors too. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching our interview with Stephen Nguyen. If you want to get in touch with him, we've got all the links there for Making Multifamily Money. And we'll see you next time on our Yellow Letters Complete interview series. Thank you.
So thank you.